Somebody blew up America. All thinking people oppose terrorism, both domestic and international. But one should not be used to cover the other. Somebody blew up America. They say it's some terrorist, some barbaric Arab in Afghanistan. It wasn't our American terrorists, it wasn't the Klan, or the skinheads, or the them that blows up nigger churches or reincarnates us on death row. It wasn't Trent Lott, or David Duke, or Giuliani, or Schindler. Helms retiring. It wasn't the gonorrhea in costume, the white sheet diseases that have murdered black people, terrorized reason and sanity, most of humanity, as they pleases. They say, who say? Who do the saying? Who is them paying? Who tell the lies? Who in disguise? Who had the slaves? Who got the bucks out the bucks? Who got fat from plantations? Who genocided Indians, tried to waste the black nation? Who live on Wall Street, the first plantation? Who cut your nuts off? Who raped your mom? Who lent your power? Who got the talk?
Our production is The Blues People at 50. We talk with Bill L.A. Graham, our music director, about the 50th anniversary of the publication by Amiri Baraka of The Blues People. He wrote it in 1963, a long time ago, in Newark, New Jersey, where L.A. will be speaking from today. It's a long, cherished event. L.A. was at the celebration there in Newark, a celebration of Amiri Baraka's Blues People at 50. Blues People, Negro Music in White America, the pioneering book about African American music by the Newark author and activist Amiri Baraka, marks a half century with a 3 tribute concerts to be held at the Newark Museum, and that was it. And Amiri Baraka was there. And you'll hear one of his poems on the world trades. The one poem that forced his removal as the poet laureate of New Jersey. The problem was there was no way to remove him, so they abolished the poet laureate of New Jersey. But nonetheless, he is the poet laureate of the world in our estimation, and we'll hear his story from Professor Baraka and also from Bill L.A. Graham, the poet laureate of Newark, New Jersey, so designated by us, and he will reign until one comes about. Nonetheless, on we go. Blues People, 50 years later. About the Blues People. Just a second. Go ahead.
Mr. Baraka, yes, explained his whole the Afro-American approach to music, and it comes right out of the African approach to music. He told us that the Africans they see their spirituality in their music. They approach it in a utilitarian fashion. In other words, they every day of their life they practice their spirituality and they practice their music, and they sing when they work, they sing when they play, they sing at home, they sing at night and in day, and that's different from the European approach, that you have it's so compartmentalized. You pray you pray on Sundays at church, and you dance maybe on Saturday night, but other than that you don't do it. Africans are praying and singing and all the time, 24/7, 365 days a week, and Baraka emphasized his mentor, Sterling Brown, who taught him at Howard when he was a student at Howard, and he said Howard says that told him once that actually Howard had him and another cultural luminary, A.B. Spellman, who was also a student at Howard at the time that Baraka was. Yeah, Sterling Brown had him over to his house, and he pointed to his record collection, and he says, "There's your history right there. Your history is in your music. It's not in the book. It's in your music, because that's the whole African tradition, is that we tell a story with our music. Even in present day rap, they're telling the story of their lives if you listen attentively. So that was really important. That for us, music is not just a recreational activity or a pastime for pleasure. It's part of our being, just like our approach to spirituality. And I think about my whole family. I used to hear my mother and my grandmother. They always be singing and singing little prayers, kind of, oh Jesus, help me through this, something like that along this line. And it made so much sense to what he said. And he also, what was illuminating for me is he broke down his whole the whole idea of that he expounded on in Blues People. He wasn't just talking about blues; he was talking about all facets of Afro-American music, jazz, ragtime, spirituals, gospels, rhythm and blues, the whole gamut. He said that's what they were talking about. And when his mentor pointed to the record collection, he wasn't just talking about black pop music. He was talking about all facets of black music. He says that's our legacy. That embodies our history, and it's important. It's absolutely vital to. It's kept us going. It's one of the things that's kept us going all these years. And the way he explained it was so. He just explained it so simply and directly that it was just fascinating to hear his lecture. To hear the actual. To hear the story from the horse's mouth. He said he talked excellent. I know when in school and in college, we read Mr. Baraka's book, Blues People, and the professor and the students made the comment that it was a fine book, but it wasn't a scholarly book. And I knew that didn't rub me right. It fell wrong on my ear. I said, well, why? What's wrong with it then? I mean, why isn't it a scholarly book? The point is that okay, maybe it is not a scholarly book, but it was a brilliant book and a very effective book. I mean, to say that the Blues People is less than scholarly. It's comparable to saying, well, if I serve you a really wonderful salad, and you looked at the salad and you said, those tomatoes in that salad, they're not really vegetables because tomatoes are really fruit. And you say, well, what the heck? The salad tastes wonderful, and the tomatoes are a vital part of the salad. And so I mean, I mean, scholars are a dime a dozen. I mean, but what Mr. Baraka did to come out, as the only Afro-American in jazz criticism at the time he wrote that book, he was like the only, person out there and taking a stand and making vital contributions to jazz criticism and actually defining an Afro-American aesthetic, making a statement about an Afro-American aesthetic that is lasting and valuable to this day. That was his contribution, and nobody else did that except Mr. Baraka, and he deserves to be praised to this day. And I was so glad they had the 50th anniversary celebration of Baraka's book, Blues People, and it was a wonderful night for all the people that have enjoyed his artistic contribution over the years. Of course, at one point he was awarded the title of Poet Laureate of the state of New Jersey, but they rescinded that honor in the wake of 9/11 because Mr. Baraka made some comments about 9/11 that the political powers that be didn't like, and so they took away his Poet Laureate status, and which is a shame. Mr. Baraka, he was of the opinion that 9/11 wasn't really the work of bin Laden, but it was a conspiracy by Israel and the aim of it was to strengthen ties between the U.S. and Israel, which is sort of, I mean, I don't agree with that opinion, but he certainly had the right to express it. I mean, and it's a shame that in supposed to be a free country here in the U.S., if you don't tote the party line, if you have an opinion that's out of step with the powers that be, you get ostracized, and so that's a sad story. In my opinion, I'm actually makes me ashamed to that kind of thing could happen in so-called the free world in the U.S. But it happened. But that hasn't stopped Baraka from. He's still a champion of justice and an outspoken advocate of black liberation, and I'm glad he's still kicking, and he's always been an inspiration to me, and a whole lot of other people. So that's the way the ball bounces, I guess, in this country.
Well, you're right about that, L.A. No doubt about it. I recall him at the Black Political Convention. The first one was held in Gary, Indiana. Mayor Hatcher was there at the time. Gary, you remember Gary, and the black politics at that, they call it at that time, where African American people came together and talked about national, politics, etc. And this man has always been many-faceted. He's been a political philosopher. Obviously, he's a poet. He's a musician. He brings music in, poetry. He's written. He's been a scholar. And comment about his book, The Blues People, not being scholarly. That is a subjective comment. You're a scholar, and we know that. Now, if you wrote a book, would it be scholarly? Yes. And they would say, well, it didn't have enough footnotes. It's a polemic. Well, if you write something, it's your opinion, yes, you don't necessarily have to footnote it. But if you footnote it, I don't know about his Blues People. I've not read it, but I'm certain that he fell back upon the African history for thousands of years. But it's important to understand there is a difference. The African tradition has always been an oral tradition that's been carried, as you say, through the music, a very holistic approach, that you don't separate music out, you don't separate spirituality out. They're all a oneness. It's not something you over here on the Sunday and you over here on Saturday night and you departmentalized. It's a totally different view. I'm certain if African scholars were commenting on many books, it would not meet the muster. And it's also important to remember here, and this is one of the things that people get into all the time. The Africans at the place for the American translation called Timbuktu, it's Mali now, they started out the first university. So they were in the university education business before the Europeans thought about it, and they were still in the caves. So I mean, it's a totally different approach to things. But it is not unlike other peoples in the world, and the majority of the people in the world have a totally different approach, and that's one of the things that's starting to happen now as the world gets more globalized. You get various different opinions on what scholarship is, various opinions on what philosophy is, and with the African people being a communal people, different, but there's also societies across what they call Asia here, they don't. That's one of the big problems that we have in defining a people. The political leader Stalin talked about that in the national question. It is what a nationality was and what it was and what they say it constitutes. That's why you have all the problems in the Mideast right now, because the colonial powers split up the land. The people were already on the land. They were there, and they were there for thousands of years, but they all of a sudden decided, well, we're going to split this up, and we're going to call you something and divide this nation into various other things. It was like when Saddam went to war with the Kuwaitis. Kuwait was a part of Iran, but what happened? Iraq. But what happened was the British came in and split it up to get the oil, and went and got this family and appointed them literally the royal family there. So, in other words, if you can get into a make-believe history, you can define things as what you want them to be. But unfortunately for some of these naysayers, the world is changing now. People are writing their own history and bringing about their own scholarship. The proliferation of things like the Wikipedia that starts out where you can go up and write something, or anyone else can write something there, and it's judged on the weight of the people. So much of this old scholarship that they had, like you said, these so-called academics, a lot of them a dime a dozen. They are put in these chairs by the wealthy people, the 1%, and that's the line that they toe. But as far as being objective, they say it's not objective. That's like what happened to Baraka in Jersey. They stripped him of his poet laureate position on a political whim. He was appointed poet laureate. He wasn't appointed political naysayer of Jersey. That's the job of Two-Ton Christie. So a difference there, but you can, like you said, you can strip a man of a title, but you can't strip the man. You cannot publish his books. You can hide him in the corner and not promote him. I was listening to a thing by the poet and novelist Ishmael Reed out of Oakland, California. He used to be out of Buffalo, but he was talking about that, where some of these fellas get on these and women get on these various talk shows and they're promoted up, whereas people like him are generally relegated to blogs. Now, I notice occasionally they let him write in the Wall Street Journal on some issues, but this whole idea of democratization of ideas is more now because you're on the cast here and it's available to the world to get the ideas of who Amiri Baraka is and what he's done. I want to ask you another question while we're on it. With his jazz criticism, how does he hold up to Stanley Crotch and Mr. Murray?
How did he go to the Stanley Crotch?
Yeah, I mean, he was, Crotch has been a jazz critic for a long time. Operating out the Daily News is still there. And Albert Murray before him, but, again, a little more involved in it because he was right in the middle of it.
Well, everybody, everyone who is a serious commentator on black culture and black music and the Afro-American aesthetic has to bounce off of Baraka's book. I mean, you might be able to say while these people there are people who say that the book is not a scholarly book, but every scholar in the world who has dealt with the subject matter has to bounce off of his book. That's
Sure.
how important his book is.
I understand.
And so, as a matter of fact, Mr. Murray, he shares the whole concept. When he talks about blues, he's not just talking about blues per se. He's talking about the entire entire ball of wax. He's talking about all of Afro-American music. And if you read his book, you see that it's just so obvious. I mean, I know. I don't know if you could say that Stanley Crouch and he had Stanley Crouch has not necessarily gotten along with Mr. Baraka. They certainly don't. They have their differences, but as I say, they all have to go through Mr. Baraka because he's the one that took the stand. He made a statement, and anyone in the field now has to be familiar with his seminal work that he did when he published Blues People.
What year do you recall? What year he put that out? Must have been.
That was in the early '60s.
Early, okay. That's what I was thinking.
I can't. I dare say it was like 62, 63 or something like that.
Okay.
I don't have my copy of the book at hand, but yeah.
Right. Well, one thing we have to say about.
The thing about
go ahead.
The thing about it, he was at that time there was this division of labor. The most of the jazz musicians were Afro-American, and most of and all of the critics at that time, virtually all of the critics were white.
Right.
And Baraka, at the time he went by the name Leroy Jones. Mm-hmm. Baraka, he changed things up. He said he broke that division of labor. You know, that the Afro-Americans would be the workforce,
right,
and the intellectual workers would all be white. He said, "No, I'm a black man. I'm a thinking black man, and I've got something to say." And he made a powerful statement.
Right.
You know, and those of us who love the music, thank him eternally for what he did. He said he was a forerunner. He was a pioneer. Now we have you've got Wynton Marsalis and you've got a whole slew of fine young thinkers that make contributions to the criticism, not just the music, but also the criticism of the music. And even as great a mind as Ralph Ellison had to take on Baraka. As a matter of fact, they had a ongoing discussion. Now, Ralph Ellison didn't agree with Baraka. He had more of a perspective that Afro-American culture in the U.S. represented the African culture.
Right.
Yeah, but which is there's a whole lot of truth to that.
Oh, no doubt.
He admonished Mr. Baraka for making the statement that the civil rights movement at the time, which was turning more and more militant and becoming the Black Power movement, and that the Black Power movement and the cultural movement among musicians were dovetailing. And Mr. Baraka, he chronicalized that he explained that phenomena that there was a class struggle going on within the black community itself, and that the black elite had always been rather conservative in their musical taste.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it.
And their political profile too, and that these new musicians and black thinkers were starting to become radicalized, and they were starting to say yes, it's our music, and it's a vital part of our struggle for freedom. And Ellison didn't necessarily see it that way. He didn't necessarily see the two strings coming together.
Some people, have
for black liberation,
right,
and the creative struggle that black artists were taking forward. So, as I say, that's how powerful of a statement that Blues People was. That everybody, whether they agreed with it or not,
had to deal with it.
Comment on it, because it was a big thing. It was a powerful statement, and I'm so glad he did that.
Well, and no doubt, history.
And in the aftermath, you have the last poets, and you have
right,
and you have I think his name. He just passed away not too long ago. What's his name?
Yeah, we did a show on him. I know he's on the tip of my tongue also.
But anyway, you have a whole generation of fine art people like Sonia Sanchez and why can't I think of my friend's name?
I know who you're thinking about. You recently died.
It'll come to me.
I think it was last. I think it was last year.
A lot of a whole school of thinking emanated out of the efforts that there's one story that I sort of like,
Well, he was the kind. Not only did he do Sweet Little 16, he was talking about how Chuck Berry was talking about how he wrote various songs about the lives, the lives of people, and that's what he did, and he performed these. Most people don't know that. A lot of African Americans were genius because that's what they did. What we do, and they were able to produce just voluminous volumes of stuff. But the unfortunate problem was where they had people, or say like the Beach Boys, just steal the tune, make millions of dollars off of it, and they're presented out here, like they're some people that are noted types, and when in fact they were not. They were just musicians that took other people's writings and put them out there, and they were promoted in that manner. Networks, promote the people, and now that people start to understand, what's happened, to the music. I mean, a lot of the music, the jazz people and various other people did, and it is all associated. He was absolutely correct about that. But what has happened and still happening, the books, many of the books that you read now are not by Amiri Baraka or his people. They're by other people that are writing on that, and they come up with a subjective opinion to attempt to write him out of the history. In other words, instead of putting him into history, they'll write him out, and some of the young people have no idea that he's the one that did this.
That's right. That's right.
Not only that, they have very little idea what even jazz is. I mean, you can understand how culturally people try to adapt things in terms of, well, what is going to, quote-unquote, make the money. So now the jazz concert, yes, you have a lot of them. Yes, you have it played in schools. But in many of our communities, it's not being played. And the young kids sometimes don't know about it unless some of the rappers, what's his name just died? It's on the tip of my tongue. He died, believe he in fact died this year. Remember, he was the man out of Detroit. He actually collaborated with some of the rappers. You know who I'm talking about. What's his name?
We're having problems today remembering everybody.
Yeah, remember Nate. Well, he taught at Howard, and I mean, he taught there for a very, very long time. What was his name? He also taught at Rutgers. They did a thing on his New York Times obituary, and they talked about him being at Rutgers and being at Howard for many, many years, and he ended up actually, and he died in Delaware. He taught at the University of also at Delaware. But he came out of the Motor City. And we both know who we're talking about. We'll have to get it later. The name is not, he was not, as popular as a commercial artist, but I didn't remember. He had a hit in the 70s. So he did that, and he mostly what he was a more of an academic, type. He worked around universities. But he also, played. Well, sort of like Wynton Marsalis. He's playing all the time, and he teaches too. And you remember, used to also teach. It used to be on the CBS Morning, Dr. Billy Taylor.
Yes.
Yeah. And, we don't have those people around, but Billy Taylor was one of the great musicians that not only played, but he knew something about the craft. Whereas a little different from Stanley Crotch. Stanley Crotch does play something, but the thing is, he's just more of a quote-unquote commercial critic. And, to stay at the Daily News, let's face it, if he would have not been able to do what Amiri Baraka did, he would not have been at the Daily News for 5 minutes. So, that's just, the reality of it. Anyway, L.A., we run out of time here. It's nice talking to you about Amiri Baraka.
Yes. No,
and
it's my pleasure.
And long will he, at least let me just...
Sing the black contribution to music. Briefly, for people who have not read Blues People, how would you describe the black contribution to music?
Well, that's really... it's about the history of Afro-American music, and from the music brought here by the slaves and how it developed, bringing the African music over here and how then it developed into the slave music, and then at the end of slavery how another kind of music, the blues, arrived, and how that developed. And like I said many times, the book tries to tell you that in the music is the history. My history professor told me that Howard was throwing around, so that's your history. If you study music closely, and blues particularly, or all the music, you'll find out how the people lived, what they thought of America, what they thought their own chances of survival in this country were. And even today, rap is no different. They're telling you about their lives, whether it's true or not sometimes, but they're still telling you about their lives. And talking about the struggles that they're going through. you know, and what they expect out of life. And that's really the most important thing about our music, that it actually tells you about our lives, you know. So there are 2 programs this year coming out called Blues People at 50. And that's what it's about. What at 50 years now, the book has been in print for 2 years. How do you explain that? What does it mean, you know, and have the meanings changed in 50 years? So that's mainly it. What is still the same? What has changed?
They wanted to come tonight. The Shannons were recuperating.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Baraka.
Somebody blew up America. All thinking people oppose terrorism, both domestic and international. But one should not be used to cover the other. Somebody blew up America. They say it's some terrorist, some barbaric Arab in Afghanistan. It wasn't our American terrorists, it wasn't the Klan, or the skinheads, or the them that blows up nigger churches or reincarnates us on death row. It wasn't Trent Lott, or David Duke, or Giuliani, or Schindler. Helms retiring. It wasn't the gonorrhea in costume, the white sheet diseases that have murdered black people, terrorized reason and sanity, most of humanity, as they pleases. They say, who say? Who do the saying? Who is them paying? Who tell the lies? Who in disguise? Who had the slaves? Who got the bucks out the bucks? Who got fat from plantations? Who genocided Indians, tried to waste the black nation? Who live on Wall Street, the first plantation? Who cut your nuts off? Who raped your mom? Who lent your pa? Who got the tar? Who got the feathers? Who had the match? Who set the fires? Who killed and hired? Who say they God? Still be the devil. Who the biggest only? Who the most goodest? Who do Jesus resemble? Who created everything? Who the smartest? Who the greatest? Who the richest? Who say you ugly and they the good lookingest? Who define art? Who defined science? Who made the bombs? Who made the guns? Who bought the slaves? Who sold them? Who call you them names? Who say Dahmer wasn't insane? Who? Who stole Puerto Rico? Who stole the Indies, the Philippines, Manhattan, Australia, and the Hebrides? Who forced opium on the Chinese? Who owned them buildings? Who got the money? Who think you funny? Who lock you up? Who owned the papers? Who owned the slave ship? Who run the army? Who was the fake president? Who the ruler? Who the banker? Who the devil on the real side? Who got rich from Armenian genocide? Who the biggest terrorist? Who changed the Bible? Who killed the most people? Who do the most evil? Who don't worry about survival? Who have the colonies? Who stole the most land? Who rule the world? Who say they good but only do evil? Who the biggest executioner? Who? Who own the oil? Who want more oil? Who told you what you think that later you find out is a lie? Who found Bin Laden? Maybe they Satan. Who paid the CIA? Who knew the bomb was gonna blow? Who know where the terrorists learned to fly in Florida and San Diego? Who knew why 5 Israelis was filming the explosion and cracking their sides at the notion? Who need fossil fuel when the sun ain't going nowhere? make the credit cards? Who get the biggest tax cut? Who walked out of the conference against racism? Who killed Malcolm, Kennedy, and his brother? Who killed Dr. King? Who would want such a thing? Are they linked to the murder of Lincoln? Who invaded Grenada? Who made money from apartheid? Who keep the Irish a colony? Who overthrew Chile and Nicaragua later? Who killed David Sebeco, Chris Hani, the same ones who killed Biko, Cabral, Neruda, Allende, Che Guevara, Sandino? Who killed Kabila, the ones who wasted Lumumba, Marlene, Betty Shabazz, Princess Di, Ralph Featherstone, Little Bobby, locked up Mandela, Deruba, Geronimo, Asada, Mumia, Garvey, Dashiell Hammett, Althea Sutton? Who killed Huey Newton, Fred Hampton, Medgar Evers, Mikey Smith, Walter Rodney? Was it the ones who tried to poison Fidel? Who tried to keep the Vietnamese oppressed? Who put a price on Lenin's head? Who put the Jews in ovens? And who helped them do it? Who said America first and okayed the yellow stars? Ho! Who killed Rosa Luxemburg, Liebknecht? Who murdered the Rosenbergs? And all the good people iced, tortured, assassinated, banished? Who got rich from Algeria, Libya, Haiti, Iran, Iraq, Saudi, Kuwait, Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, Jordan, Palestine? Who cut off people's hands in the Congo? Who invented AIDS? Who put the germs in the Indians' blankets? Who thought up the Trail of Tears? Who blew up the Maine and started the Spanish-American War? Who got Sharon back in power? Who backed Batista, Hitler, Bilbo, Chiang Kai-shek? Who decided affirmative action had to go? Reconstruction, the New Deal, the New Frontier, the Great Society? Who do Tom S. Clarence work for? Who do come out the colon's mouth? Who know what kind of skeezer is a Condoleezza? Who pay Connolly to be a wooden Negro? Who give genius awards to Homo locus subsidiary? Who overthrew Nkrumah, Bishop? Who poisoned Robeson? Who tried to put Du Bois in jail? Who framed Rap Jamil Alamin? Who framed the Rosenbergs, Garvey, the Scottsboro Boys, the Hollywood 10? Who set the Reichstag fire? Who knew the World Trade Center was going to get bombed? Who told 4,000 Israeli workers at the Twin Towers to stay home that day? Why did Sharon stay away? Who? Explosion of owl, the newspapers say. Devil's face could be seen. Explosion of owl, the newspapers say the devil's face could be seen. Who? Who make money from war? Who make dough from fear and lies? Who want the world like it is? Who want the world to be ruled by imperialism and national oppression and terror, violence and hunger and poverty? Who is the ruler of hell? Who is the ruler of hell? Who is most powerful? Who you know ever seen God? But everybody's seen the devil. Like an owl exploding in your life, in your brain, in yourself. Like an owl who know the devil all night, all day if you listen. Like an owl exploding in fire. Like an owl exploding in your life, in your brain, in yourself. Like an owl who know the devil all night, all day, if you listen. Like an owl exploding in fire. We hear the questions rise in terrible flame like the whistle of a crazy dog. like the acid vomit of the fire of hell. Who and who and who, 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 who?